then start at the level how to conceptualize what you experience as a possible problem. Because it is a possible problem. It might not be a problem to the other people with whom you work. For those people look at the problem from a totally different perspective. And that totally different perspective might be a catalyst for a research they're not going to give a solution to the problem. So therefore, we have these two poles in terms of this knowledge-based research, and we have this problem-solving research. And which is where I'm currently in my own life, that I work between the two. Knowledge-based research, how it influenced my problem-based research. This is what it is. And from that kind of research, that is where I think we get the new, fresh contributions to congregations, new, fresh contributions to theological educations, fresh contributions to our policies in our churches. You have the experience, you have policy documents, but you don't know how those policies influences the research on the ground. And all of us have their challenge in terms of leaders. Let me make an example in terms of the ministry where I am involved in that congregation of 3,500 members. Mostly it's Afrikaans speaking, and because it's part of the Dutch Reformed Church mission work in the past. You're the one for the whites, the one for the blacks, like me, like Xhosa, Zulu, Sothos, the others you have for the Indians, and the others we have for the colors. We have those kind of ethnic categories. This is how mission was planted here. But two of these churches united in 1994. It became the United Reformed Church in Southern Africa. South Africa and Namibia. But those who are united are the Xhosa speaking and the Afrikaans speaking. Now in the Cape Town area, you find mostly these big congregations, 2,000 plus members. You find one in Stellenbosch, you drive 20 kilometers, you find another one. This is how it is the whole Cape. Very big congregations also. But in between, you also have a couple of smaller congregations from where I'm coming, like Xhosa speaking, etc. 100, 200, maybe 800. This is what you get here. And you find one here, you find one in the airport. And the reason for that was part of the segregation of the country in the past. Those people who came here, they were migrant workers. They formed their own congregations because they were not supposed to be here. They were supposed to be in the Eastern Cape, but not here. White-dominated, Afrikaans-speaking area also. Now, after 1994, in the democratic country, the opening up more and more people came and moved in here as part of the internal migration. And because of that internal migration, there is now a problem for the church. How do you integrate these different communities from the same confessional background but different kind of experiences? Which is a challenge, I think, to all of us in Africa and Nigeria in terms of ethnicity and etc. And so there is a praxis problem for ministers, for policy makers, for everyone, and we need research about that. We don't have the models for how you do it and the models of in terms of what theology that you do it. So we have that gap in research, and there is no blueprints out there. There's no model out there. It's a fresh ground. And this is why, for me, the kind of research that you do currently, we need more of this, and absolutely so urgently. So for me, being part of that community where you have to integrate people, Xhosa speaking different ethnic group, the same tradition but different in terms of all the other social issues. How do you do that? And we sit with the issues of xenophobia and all those lot of issues. If we can have something from that congregation and we solve the problem in terms of these issues, that can also become a model to work with the broader inter-ethnic issues as Africans from this continent. So that you sit with those theological and practical issues about this also. Now you can go and read, just like an example, you can read Acts 15 in terms of this biblical model. But how is it going to help us to solve that problems? And therefore, the kind of research that, I'll come back to this context again now, the kind of research that you then get is this knowledge-based. And then you describe it. And then you explain it. But what we need after that, we need much more prescription. What should happen in this congregation so that this change and transformation can take place? Can you hear that? It's very prescriptive research that is important, that is coming in here. And I'm sure most of your issues here is around that how question. But that how question is not practical issues here and there, shifting one in there. It's really in a tradition of prescription research. Where we get something of this, I'll illustrate it later, we get it in people who do design research in technology. Somebody talk about the youth and communication and so on. Because they know in order to achieve that, my technology, I must design it in that way. It must have that effect. This is that kind of prescriptive knowledge that is clearly important for us to have that and so on. So a professional degree with a descriptive and explanation from knowledge-based research helps us in order to see what kind of questions can be posed to address the question, but it doesn't show us how to do it in the practice. And seemingly, what I've heard so far, that your research is kind of different mixture of empirical base. Because somebody say there's a case study, somebody say I have to do this, I have to resolve this of the minister's intervention is empirical research and so on. And that is what keeps me awake in the evenings in terms of how do we do that? Not only when we end up in the PhD doctoral level, but when you get in advanced level of theological education, and that is the 3rd year and the 4th year of theological education. There you have to begin to pick up some of this language, even if it's a very minimum level. But then, this is where we met, the two of us, at the master's level. And we had our own discussions about what he was doing and so on. And then he realized he had to go to Joburg for 3 weeks. And just to go and do a specific program. So that when he come back, we can speak the same language. So there was no need for him. And I'm sorry that I didn't think about this. I didn't ask your permission whether I should do this.
It's
but
okay.
You are the Archbishop, you'll understand. So there was no need for him that I think that he should go and do a 1 year or a 2-year course in sociology or psychology. For us was, what is the need now? And the best way to address that, if you can just go and attend that course, you come back and we talk again. So it means that that 3 weeks that he has actually spent there, now coming back, it's possible to spend that 3 weeks in a 3rd year and a 4th year undergraduate course and learn students to do that in that way. And then if you're doing that, you continue with your honors, with your masters, with your doctorate. And then it becomes addressing the problems in the context, and then you train professionals. there is always this discussion between a seminary training and an academic university training, which I think it's very problematic, and we don't need that kind of discussions. We need the interaction of both. If you are at the university, you should, in fact, also get a professional training for the congregation. And if you have training in a seminary, you should be able to do professional research that can solve the problems, and therefore also assist academics like us who work in this context also how to train your students.